right. Well, let's begin with a prayer. Closing our eyes, bringing our gaze to the point between the eyebrows, the spiritual eye. Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Friend, beloved God,
Friend, beloved God,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
and our beloved Guru Paramahansa Yogananda.
and our beloved Guru Paramahansa Yogananda.
We humbly bow at thy feet.
We humbly bow at thy feet.
Beloved Christ,
Beloved Christ,
come to us.
come to us.
Fill our hearts.
Fill our hearts.
Fill our minds.
Fill our minds.
Fill our actions.
Fill our actions.
With your compassion.
With your compassion.
Your love.
Your love.
And your light.
And your light.
We are your children.
We are your children.
Guide us and bring us home.
Guide us and bring us home.
Om.
Om.
Amen. Peter's going to start with a few pieces of music for us.
Turn on that original sound. This hopefully works. This is Vieni Presto Jesu, or Come to Me Jesus. So let's just chant for a little bit to get into the spirit, and we can be feeling in our hearts, draw on the presence of Jesus, invite that light, love, and joy to come into our hearts and expand within us. Vieni presto Gesù, vieni, vieni, 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 vieni presto Gesù. Presto Gesù, vieni, vieni, vieni 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 presto Gesù. Presto Gesù, vieni, vieni, vieni presto Gesù, vieni, vieni. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy love. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy love. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Come to me, Jesus, fill me with thy light. Let's continue this prayer inwardly for just a moment. Okay. Well, today will be it's a joy to be able to share just different resources for families to tune into Christmas, and, tune into Jesus's presence. And oh, my name is Peter. This is Gayatri. Good to start with that. I do some teaching over at the Expanding Light, and I here at Ananda Village, and I almost never share my name, which I realized halfway through that I'd never even introduced myself. So I got to work on that. But I had the good karma to be born at Ananda Village with, and especially to parents that were very keen on sharing the path with their children. There's three of us, and so um, there's just different treasures, things that I really came to resonate with as a child, and then um, and then now I'm trying to share with our child as well. So it's my mother shared many resources, which Gayatri will talk about too. So there, and we'll share other things. But I wanted to start maybe a little bit more with a broad picture because I was born in '84, my sister in '79, and then our younger brother in '92. Only that I'm just showing that to share sort of the phase of Ananda that we were coming into. And in the '70s and so forth, Ananda was very monastic. It was primarily monks and nuns, especially those that um, were really I don't know, close with Swamiji, let's say, or it was. And Swami actually saw the that imbalance in the community, that if something didn't change, it would just be a monastic, ashram and not a spiritual community. So which is some of the, he was setting, when he himself got married, he was setting this example of how to live, that this spiritual life and dedicating yourself to God doesn't have to be just in outwardly monastic terms. It can be in married and family terms, as we now know in Ananda. But that wasn't very clear at the beginning. And the other thing that was a little bit unclear for if you can put yourself in the context of all these essentially hippies living in the woods, building simple cabins, bringing trailers, teepees, just whatever, however they could live, and just living simply, and really stepping away from Western culture, just living essentially essentially an Indian, a Vedic ashram, let's put it. It's very, um, uh, very unique experience at that time, especially. And there was no paved roads. There was not even any gravel on the roads. It's just very, very simple. I'm talking about the 1970s here at the village. And but in that whole context, many of that generation that were coming to these founding members that were coming to the village, many had been brought up in a religious household, many Christians, some Jewish as well. And so there was this unknowingness of how to relate to Jesus even. It just wasn't a given of how do we, how do we relate to Jesus? We don't want to relate to him in a sectarian and dogmatic way. Of course, that many of them had rejected a sectarian or dogmatic upbringing, in that church. I imagine for the people that were raised Jewish, I bet it was, I know for some it was particularly complicated to relate to Jesus. And so within that, it was a little bit of an unknown, especially then as the moving into the '80s, there was more families coming in, and so forth. So there's just a little bit of an unknown, how to relate to Jesus, how do we share it with our kids. Swami Kriyananda told my mom, that because many parents were not even wanting to share the path with their kids because religion had been sort of crammed down their throats, so to speak. And so they were just like, oh, I'm not going to impose anything. And Swami's response to that to my mom was, well, the children should know, if they're going to reject the path, they should know what they're rejecting. You should share it with them, not shoving it down the throats, but share it with them. So I'm just sort of setting this context to sort of how the stage that we were born into, and many others were born into, this of like, how do you relate to all this? How do you share the path generally with your kids? But how do we as a community approach Jesus? How do we How do we share that with our children? And much of that was clarified as Swami started writing different songs. There's some beautiful Christmas carols, that night when Christ was born, and Christmas mystery, and things along those lines. But in 1984, the year I was born, he wrote the oratorio, and that I've heard from people that were adults at that time, was very clarifying of this is how we can really deeply have devotion to Jesus in the context of our path. And ultimately, what it was is an understanding that this is an avatar, and that the avatars come to bring its different expressions, as Master put it, of that light, of the beauty and the joy of God. And I see we're getting washed out a little bit by the sunlight. We're merging into the light. So, maybe even there we go. Hey, let's just move over here a little bit. We might have to do that again as the sun moves, but so this I wanted to set that stage. One, that this is a beautiful and essential thing to share with our children, all the different facets of the path in an approachable way that they can embrace. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but also just that Jesus particularly, sometimes it can be, depending on what our upbringing was, can be hard to approach Jesus in a way that, in sort of in Master's Ray, let's say, and hard to know exactly how to do that. And so there's many resources and things we can share along those lines, but I'll just share a little bit about my upbringing. I'm very grateful now that my parents were very committed to sharing the path with us in different ways. We had just many children's books from different books of the Buddha and Krishna and Jesus and so forth, and just different ways. But primarily here talking about Jesus, there was Advent, the practice of Advent, the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas was very important in our household. And I remembered having these sort of sacred, nothing grand, and I'm not talking about a deep, some crazy spiritual experience, but not anything like that, but just this deep feeling of sacredness is actually what I'm talking about. Around these, after dinner, we'd be gathered around the table. We'd light the Advent candles, however many for that week so far, and there would be maybe a reading from the story of Jesus, or different stories from his life, and some songs. And these sort of three elements are really beautiful and helpful in order to share with your children. I think I was just talking to my sister about this morning, and she sort of was talking about these three elements. Candlelight, it adds that's a stillness and a sacredness. Music and stories. All three of these kids can really relate to. So it's not, we're not sharing some deep esoteric teaching. We're sharing heart-opening things that can be felt, can be tuned into. And that's what's so beautiful about coming to the story of the birth of Jesus, is that it's such a beautiful, simple, sweet, heart-expanding moment that we can tune into. And it's very interesting. In India, they have, we have some of them in our prayer, the ways that we can relate to the divine mother, heavenly father, friend and beloved, divine friend, infinite beloved, all these different ways. But in India, there's another one that Master didn't include in that prayer, which is the child. That actually you can worship God, and they look at baby Krishna this way. Ananda Ma is even is said to have said that she said, "You look at me as mother, but I wish you would look at me as child." Because you can forget about your mother sometimes, especially once you're grown, but you never forget about your child. And so and when we come to the child, we can't help but open our hearts and feel the innocence, beauty, and imagine, visualizing the avatar there, the light, the radiant joy, and it's just in this little adorable, package that can be so sweet and can be a real tangible experience to relate to. And so that's the essence of what we're wanting to share is that beauty, simplicity, and light, and joy, and that sweetness of that innocence. But more than anything, what we need to remember, I think, as parents, is that to bring in these little points of uh, connection, so that children can relate to the holiness of it, the sacredness of it. It's all too easy, especially in today's culture where it's largely commercialized and things like that. It's very easy to just let it just be a holiday in and of itself that's not connected to that holiness, that essence of what Christmas is actually about. It's about the birth of Jesus, and then we can bring that into our lives in terms of those qualities, that feeling of divine love, that heart opening towards the divine child, like I was talking about, being born within us. This is what Master talked about, a lot of those qualities being born in us, that divine love that Jesus showed. What the avatars show is just even coming into this world, being willing to be born back into this world, which is not always easy. Let's just put it like that. But that he showed throughout his life, the incredible compassion, but also the strength and courage, divine courage, and to and the divine blessing that he brought to so many. So to be able to communicate that sacredness, and this is really important, and this is where the songs and stories, and then in that setting of candlelight, it really makes a difference. I know we've made a habit. It's not every night, but we'll often do a candle. From time to time, we'll do a candlelit dinner. And Aurelia really, she's only 2.5, but she loves it. She's oh, can we light the candles? And then she wants, at the end of dinner, she wants to blow them out and everything. So it can be a wonderful experience, even outside of the Christmas season. But it can be sort of to set a scene, to set a tone, just having a little bit of candlelight, and singing the songs. I particularly remember growing up and having these moments around the dinner table, reading the stories and different Christmas stories and so forth. But I particularly remember this song rather, "O Come, Emmanuel," and I don't know where it originally comes from, but it's this song, one of the few, if not the only song about the Advent season, about awaiting the coming of Jesus. And it's just this beautiful sacred song. And we would just sing it a cappella. And I think we just sang the first verse and then the chorus, which is maybe the most beautiful part. There's a few other verses. There's one or two that we just kind of skip even, get a little too, fire and brimstone. Some of the traditional carols, you have to just, there's many of them. It's kind of funny, just as an aside, the many of the traditional carols will be just deeply beautiful and we'll be able to relate to in our path. And then there'll be one that's like kind of dogmatic and kind of, thanks, Sansa, I will sing it. But so we just skip that one, if it's dogmatic or whatever. And we've been singing, I'll accompany us on the guitar as we do it, but we would just sing it a cappella. And I just remember, I have this vivid memory of feeling the sacredness of that moment, around the dinner table with the Advent candles lit and singing this song of deep, deep yearning for the coming of the Messiah, Emmanuel. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the translation of Emmanuel is God with us, which is a really beautiful thing to think about. But maybe I'll just sing it. Do we have that music nearby? Because might as well accompany it on the guitar. Thank you. Original sound again to get the music by my guitar. And so again, the music and the stories can be such an aid to communicate the holiness and the sacredness of the season. And okay, so this is um, the first verse. I'll just read it out loud. O come, Emmanuel. Again, as I understand it, the translation is God with us. And ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appears. And then the chorus is, rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. So it's a little bit of Old English kind of poetically saying that, you know, awaiting the Messiah and that he's going to free us. And so it's a beautiful way to sort of moving through the Advent season to sort of be calling on the presence of Jesus and to come to us and fill us and free us. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appears. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. I'll just repeat that. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appears. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. So it's a beautiful way to tune into the holiness, the sacredness, to invite the presence of Jesus. As are many, as I was mentioning, the songs of the oratorio, the different Christmas carols that Swamiji wrote, but then many of the traditional carols. Silent Night is a classic one. It's been translated into many languages. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. Hark the Herald Angel Sings, different ones like that. There's some of these classic, A Little Town of Bethlehem, some beautiful, beautiful carols. I think many of these were written in England. Silent Night, I believe, was German. And there's some French ones as well, but it became a tradition, I think, primarily in England. So there's many of them are English songs. And that really helped connect with the sacredness of it. Look at our time here, but I'll let Gayatri go here in a minute. But I just was wanting, just in case there's any Indian families that are watching this, particularly those in India. I know there's many Indian families in the West as well, but Um, but particularly for the Indian family, Swamiji was asked in India, is it important that, to celebrate the life of Jesus and, the Christmas season and stuff in India as well? Like, you know, is it important on our path to? And Swamiji's answer was very clear. Yes, he's one of our gurus. So don't let him be separate or different. I was listening to a class series of Asha's where she was just talking about how there's a lot of connection between India and Jesus in different ways. The one that Master talked about was that the wise men were in fact Lahiri, Yukteswar, and Babaji coming to visit this avatar being born, and sort of bless that incarnation. And that, in fact, the so-called lost years of Jesus are where it was him going back to return the visit and spending time in Tibet and India. And what I don't think Master talked about, but what Asha was sharing was that well, I think this is fairly well established that Saint Thomas, one of the apostles, went back to India as well. And that so there's just this connection, and it's as I understand it, when the Portuguese got to Goa in I think the 1400s, I could be wrong about that date, might have been the 1300s or something, but the around in there somewhere, they landed there and then found that there was already a Christian work there, going all the way back to the time of Thomas. So it's there's a deep connection, and on the levels that the masters exist, there's not any separation. I think that's part of what Master in this incarnation was bringing, to showing how the original teachings of Christianity and the original teachings of Krishna are one and the same, essentially, that they're talking about the same inner truth. So we should feel very comfortable in this, expanding our hearts in this Christmas season. So anyway.
Well, thank you, Peter. I'll touch a little bit on, we now have a child of our own. She's 2.5. And so, especially this Christmas, just we're coming into the age where she's starting to engage more in the world and make sense of some of these things. So it's really been our first year. Really, what do we want to do with her, and what kind of traditions we want to bring into our family life. And Advent being one that was so important to his childhood around Christmas. It's been something that we've been bringing into our home life. And I can share this resource with the group afterwards. But Lorna Knox, she is up in Portland. She ran the school for many, many years up there.
It was one of the co-directors of Ananda Portland.
Yeah. So. She wrote, it's a huge book of all these resources for Sunday school teachers, ideas on things you can do each week. But she has 4 weeks dedicated for the 4 weeks of Advent, and just beautiful, short excerpt readings of what that week means, what we could be tuning into, some stories, some even craft ideas, and then kind of what you could do each night as you're lighting the candle. I'll just read one that was just so beautiful. This was, why do we light the first candle? We light the first candle of Advent, the candle of promise, because it reminds us that God has made a promise to send a Messiah or Savior. This gives us hope. Let hope enter our hearts as we wait for the Messiah to come again. As you light the first candle, say, I am the light of the world. Whosoever follows me will have the light of life and will never walk in darkness. It just gives you a little taste of what she's put together. And so we've been kind of following this a little bit as a guide for us as we're bringing an Advent into our home life. Having a 2-year-old, we do have to work with the reality of a toddler, and we're kind of learning how much we can do, and even the timing. Often our routine as a family has been, after dinner, it's playtime, wrestle time with dad. And so the first time we tried doing Advent, it was like right after dinner, which was normally playtime wrestle. And then we're trying to have this really inner experience, the candlelight and the music. And it just was not working. There was just the energy. She wasn't receptive to it. And so we tried, the second week, okay, we have to work with what is and what is her energy, and kind of when is she going to be receptive. And so it's like, okay, playtime, wrestle, get the energy out, and then a little bit later in the evening, we can bring in coming back a little bit more still. And so just, you have to work with our children as they are, of what they can be receptive to. And it's something for me also, I've been starting working with her with a little bit of meditation. And again, it's when is she kind of receptive to it, instead of, as adults, it's morning and night, have a very regular time. And with her, with the children, I'm realizing, okay, well, when are they going to be the most receptive? And for her, it's often right before bed or right after she wakes up from a nap. There's just a little bit more of this stillness. Maybe she's just kind of coming back from the astral dream world where she's not wanting, to be very physical. And so she can kind of step into that space and be more receptive to some stillness. And even that, sometimes stillness is hard, for kids. And so finding creative ways of, sometimes just holding a candle, and she does her little arati at her altar, can help, give her something physical but focused to do. So it's not just kind of fidgeting. And what I've also found is she has her own altar in her room. And she's really starting to realize and like remember, and that's a place that I go for meditation, and we do our prayers there. And one time I was trying to do meditation out here in the living room. She's like, no, the altar. I was like, okay, great, yeah, the altar. That's where it has that vibration, it has that energy, that's where we're going to meditate, that's where we're going to pray, look at her pictures of, the masters, and the things that she finds special. So it's, she's only 2.5, but there's already these things are real for them. And so that just was something that I found really interesting, is kind of finding where's there the energy and the openness, and kind of match it. And when there is that receptivity, that's where okay, now we're going to meditate for a few minutes. So that's we're going to do our Advent. And then, maybe as kids get older, there can be more of, after dinner, this is what we do. And, but just some other things I think we're really weaving into our life during this season. For me personally, I've been reading a lot more of the Bible, which is just something I never did growing up. So it's feeding me. But then we have a children's Bible, with beautiful artwork. And yeah, let's show them.
It's classic Bible stories. It's compiled by a woman named Lisa Caldwell. I'm mentioning that because you can find it online. It is out of print, but you can find it used online for reasonably little. But just this is a random picture, just beautiful, beautiful artwork. Sorry, I'm interrupting. You can keep talking.
Beautiful one we did today. So it's just a beautiful way to bring in these stories. And
here's Mary with Jesus, baby Jesus. There we go. Just beautiful artwork that kids can relate to.
And something that, having these the stories of the Bible, and then I'm reading, the stories in the adult Bible, kind of filling in gaps that maybe the children's doesn't have. And then the story, the music, there's so much of the story in the music. And so you're getting the story through the music, but also the spiritual vibration of the music, to create that atmosphere, that holiness. And something else that has been really fun, I'll actually turn our camera and show you here what we've got. It's a little nativity. And this is actually one that Peter's aunt made.
Yeah, it might not be clear. They're soft. They're toys, so that kids can play with them and without risking breaking them. So it's a nice thing to be able to. And Aurelia just loves the little baby Jesus. So
yeah, and it brings the story and the people that are in this scene that we're doing the stories about, and the music. It brings it to life, and then she's setting up the manger, or she's tucking the baby in, and I want to bring Jesus, I want to bring the baby with me to wherever we're going. And so just very tangible ways that the children can connect, and it's real for them, and they have their own experience of it. One other thing I wanted to share, Yogananda and then Swami talked about celebrating Christmas, like a social Christmas, and then our spiritual Christmas. And so a lot of these ways we're kind of talking about the spiritual and how do we relate to that with our family life. But was really important for me is in the social element. How do we not feel like we're depriving our daughter of the joy and the fun and festivities, but that it's more about what can we give, how can we be kind, how can we be helpful, how can we have our heart more open and loving and generous, as opposed to just here's my big long list for Santa and this is all the things I want. But just what can we give, and just finding ways very practical to bring her into that. And wrapping Christmas presents, she loves wrapping the presents for everyone, and so everyone's getting toddler wrapped presents with little notes and pictures and stickers, but she's putting her love into it, and when we're wrapping it, we pray and we bless the presents, and we talk about, oh, this is going to make someone so happy to open this present that you are giving them. And we were over at the Hermitage has a little gift shop, and so we were looking for some presents for people, and I was asking her, who do you want to get gifts for? And so just bringing more into the attitude of what are you giving for people. And there was, I want this, that we had to have that conversation of, oh, she really likes,
I want to keep this one.
I want to keep this one. And why, what are we trying to do? And, and when we are giving gifts, it's opening our heart, it's expanding, and it's joyful, and it's helping us expand and be joyful in that giving, in that act. And, it's obviously a process. For ourselves, let alone for children to really understand. But something that when I said, oh, I'd really love to get a gift for, and I named the person, who would you like to pick out? Like that helped her see that, like, oh, mom's doing this and I want to do this too. Not just I'm being asked to give something and mom's not giving anything. And similarly, there was right after Thanksgiving, kind of bringing in the holiday season, we went around and we collected things in our house that, old clothes that we weren't using, or things that didn't fit her anymore, or old toys. And we were going to give them away to a women's and children's shelter. And we were talking about, why we're giving them away. And there was definitely this resistance of, I don't understand why. And, and then we kind of talked it through. We're so blessed to have all of these things, and other kids don't have, the way they don't have the things that we have. And we can be kind and we can share, and still it was a little bit, okay, I'm not quite sure about this. And then it was, let's go to mama's closet. Can you find some things that I'm not using or that I could give away? And once it became me also doing it and participating in it, it totally shifted. It was, oh, I want to give this and that. And then anytime she, now, she's growing so much right now. And she'll put on clothes and it's a little tight. She goes, give to friends. And she gets a bag and puts it in. And so it helped her see it in action and see, oh, this is joyful. And
This isn't just something I'm being forced to do. It's like, no, this
yeah,
is something we do.
that
This,
is something that we do. And so I think so much of our example as parents, is so important that we're doing these things too, that we're asking our children to expand and to give, and we should try to be doing that as well. And that's how the social aspect can be spiritualized, I think too, in these traditions, and making it, a tradition, every night before bed now, while I'm tucking her in, we're doing healing prayers and ask, do for the world, for other children. Sometimes there's specific people, and I'll ask her, who would you like to pray for today? And sometimes there's no one that she has. Another time she has a whole list of people, and more, rub your hands, mama. And she's feeling it, and it, is really engaging with it. Um, and I think that's something that I'm seeing in working with, our daughter Aurelia, but then also with the other kids, here at the village with Sunday school and family ministry, that we're giving these opportunities to have these experiences. And sometimes the feedback isn't immediate, or sometimes it appears that they're not really connecting with it. But then afterwards, all the questions will come in, or it really was, they were just trying to process what the experience was, or what you're asking them. And as an example, the other day, I really asked, oh, let's do some yoga. And it's like, get out our yoga mats. And then we start doing yoga. And she just appeared so uninterested and just watched me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a few postures. And she appeared to not really be interested. And then that night, Peter comes home and she did the whole series that I did, and showed him, look at this one, look at this one, and I was like, oh, she was absorbing this, and she was connecting with it. And just, there's not always that exact feedback that you think that how they're going to relate to it. So I think a lot of these things, we're just giving the opportunity to experience and to feel the vibration and to see our example, and then you know they're gonna take what they can, and they're gonna relate to it, and um, it does go in there. And obviously, as Peter's talking, he still remembers all of these moments, these feelings. So they stick, with our children. um,
We'll share some resources after, in the coming days and weeks and stuff. But one of the other ways that I really tuned into the sacrednesses was this story that my dad told for the Sunday service right before Christmas, and I had the honor, I would say, to be able to tell that story last year. I'm not going to be telling it this year, but I told it last year at Sunday service, and there's a recording of that. There are some older recordings of my dad telling it as well, but it's again just helping. The story is masterful, let's say, at connecting you with the experience of being there, and how that would transform you, being able to be face to face with the baby Jesus, and what the vibration would feel like, without being heavy-handed about it, but just letting you tune into it, through the eyes of one of the characters. And so that again was a way that something that was very meaningful to me growing up, just to connect with the sacredness and holiness of this season and the story and everything. I booked myself with another satsang right at the end of this one without accounting for travel time, so I'm gonna have to go. But Gayatri can stick around, but maybe I could probably stay a few minutes and just sing that other chant.
Sure.
So this is, I mentioned Swami Kriyananda was married for a short time, it was 5 years or so. And so this isn't totally part of our path, this song that I'm missing, but it actually came from the spiritual work that his wife was a part of in Italy. And it's beautiful. Hamza, you might be familiar with it. I think they sing it sometimes in Ananda Village, but uh, um, you turned original sound on.
Yeah.
Okay. With the ways that I connected with the vibration and helped it feel very connected. This was something that was sung as I was growing up in the community more. It's not sung so much in the village anymore because, again, it's not directly part of our path, but sort of adjacent in a way. But it just is a beautiful way to call, again, the same words as Swami's chant, or almost, Vieni Signore Gesù. Anyway, I just thought I'd share it because it was something in those early years of my life that and that's a point I was talking to my sister this morning, and that was a point that she made, that it is those things in those early years that we really connect with, and if we're tuning into the holiness, the sacredness in these different ways, sometimes these can become treasures. And there's different ones of those from my upbringing that I really Handel's Messiah is another one, a little bit older, as I was a little bit older, but things like that really make me feel the sacredness of the season, sacredness of the event. So this is Vieni Signore Gesù, very similar words. And there's harmonies and everything to this, but it's just, I'll just sing this, the melody. Vieni Signore Gesù, Vieni Signore Gesù. Vieni Signore Gesù, vieni Signore Gesù, Sorry to have to run, but you guys can keep chatting.
So I think I'll just close everything we've been talking about. Master Yogananda talked about the second coming of Christ being the Christ consciousness awakened in our own hearts, and that waiting till Christmas of that coming is preparing our hearts, opening our hearts more and more to the light of Christ, of that Christ consciousness. And I think anything we do with our inner life, our spiritual life, and then how we can share that with our children, in all the ways that we celebrate Christmas. It's how can we open our hearts more? How can we help our children open their hearts, to love, to kindness, to compassion? That's the blessing of this season, and the joy of Christmas. So thank you for being here, and for those that will listen to this, I hope it's helpful, um, for your families and for your own life. So thank you. I'm going to stop recording.